Welcome to a Monday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weiner alongside Thomas Carinante. The Yankees go to Fenway Park, lose 2 of 3 to a last-place Red Sox team. It's the best series they've played in about a month. Very encouraging, very fun. They almost won twice. So I think that's important. You guys should remember that. They almost won twice. They almost won 0 times, but they did win once. And now they come home. Exhale to face the Tampa Bay Rays, who've owned them for the past several years, but not this year, but maybe now. Then the Blue Jays for 4 games, then the Mets for 2 games. And, oh, by the way, that's supposed to be Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer, if that's how the rotation shakes out. So that should be great. All they really need to do is go 6-6 over this stretch against divisional opponents while they wait for players to come back from injury, and they just erase more games off the schedule. So far, they're 1-2. That would involve in the series against the Rays, split series and split in the Mets series. But again, the Mets series might be Scherzer and deGrom. And again, are they really going to split any series ever at any point in time? And are they really going to take the Rays series? That's something like I can't just roll into the Rays series being like, well, you could just take the Rays series, then you'll be back on track. They haven't taken a series in 2 weeks. Why would they take the Rays series? Even though the pitching kind of makes sense. And it's Cole in this series, and it's Nestor in this series, and it's Domingo Germán against Corey Kluber in the finale. But why would they just take the Rays series? You can't take Yankee games for granted at this point. You can't go, oh, yeah, well, they'll take 2 out of 3. And what would they take 2 out of 3 in? They have not done that in weeks. So why would they do it now? They have a 10-game lead in the AL East because the Blue Jays are 3-7 in their last 10, and the Yankees are 2-8 in their last 10. But the Blue Jays are coming to town, so they can't both lose every day this week. Not possible. We'll see where that lead is at the end of the week. Also, Yankees are sending out injury updates like DJ and Stanton and Severino. And yeah, I said DJ, who's now injured, maybe going to take Harrison Bader's boot for the month of September. Could that actually lead to something good, some good roster shuffling if the Yankees have to replace one of their captains who's been struggling lately? It should. It won't. Plus, Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez is kind of awkward experience on ESPN over the weekend. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Drop us a 5-star review. Drop us a mailbag question. We will answer your mailbag question. We will froth and foam and spin around. And now I got commenters on my case because I put digs at Domingo Germán into my articles that are about Domingo Germán. And like, what do you want me to say? Domingo Germán rules? Is that what you want? 1.6 homers per 9 innings last year. Just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's now the woke mob to say Domingo Germán sucks. I don't know. The world is so stupid. Yankees commenters coming for the worst possible hills to die on while the Yankees go 2-7 on a 9-game road trip through 2 contenders and a last place team. But that last place team is the Red Sox at Fenway Park, and that just never goes well. Again, best series in weeks. Lost 2 out of 3, one pretty good win in there. Thomas Carinante, welcome to the podcast. The leaves are falling. The New York Yankees are plummeting, but not enough so far. But they're going to plummet this week. And how you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty much just what we expected over this weekend. You and I talked about it. Going into Fenway is always the same, regardless of how these teams are performing. The Yankees could have went in there on a hot streak. The Red Sox could have been exactly where they were, last place, whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Of course, they were going to face Michael Wacha in this series, but he was coming back from being out for weeks or over a month or something. Buzzsaws the Yankees once again. This series had it all. Yankees in control in game 1. Red Sox haven't gotten a hit since the fourth inning on Friday. Have the lead going into the 9th. Can't hold it. Lose that. Red Sox score their first runs and get their first hit. Last hit in that game was JD Martinez in the 4th inning. He gets the game tying hit in the bottom of the 9th. So you can see how interesting the book ending of there is. Yes, Domingo Germán, nice start. Sadly, not enough. Clay Holmes, we'll get into him in a little while. Can't be in this role at the moment. Would like him in this role forever, as long as he's still healthy or competent. But there needs to be a change. The Yankees' failure to get ahead of problems and instead watch them persist has been their undoing. Then you have Saturday, which was great because everything was ass backwards. What happened in that one? IKF, the only man who could save us from a sweep in Boston. First homer of the year, 2-run jack. Runners on the corners in the top of the 9th. Bunts home a run to take the lead. Stuff you'll never see ever again. And if he doesn't have that game, the Yankees get swept here. And to complete the trifecta, you have a Sunday Night Baseball, which was a snoozer. What was it? 2 hours and 13 minutes?
2 hours and 15 minutes. The 2 hours and 13-minute game was Yankees Red Sox back in 94. That's the shortest ever record. 2 hours and 15. They did this back in 2018 too. Oh yeah, always good to remember 2018.
Great.
Bob Nightingale with a fantastic tweet saying that this hasn't happened in nearly 39 years. When 1994 was not that long ago. And there was also an extra space in there. It was just the worst tweet you'll ever see.
Good tweet. And you had, of course, Aaron Judge, Sunday Night Baseball, 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Seen it before.
Homered in the first one, though.
What?
Homered in the first one, though.
Yeah, true. Well, that was an Amazon game. That doesn't count. That's not a primetime game.
That was not on television.
No, I'm talking about national television. We've all been here with Aaron Judge on national television. It's agonizing because he's a fucking great baseball player. It's so fun to watch him. And then you have him swinging over sliders against the Mets, against Max Scherzer at Citi Field, when one swing of his bat, as little as a blooper, could have changed that entire game. And then the Yankees put up a goose egg on Sunday night. 2 hits, 1 walk against Michael Wacha, Ryan Brazier, and Garrett Whitlock. Couldn't have been, that was I guess those losses are actually inspiring because they never have a chance. They don't really make it. Like once Jameson Taillon gave up that home run in the 6th, you knew it was over. And you really weren't like, oh my God, this team's keeping me in this game and they're going to make me watch this through 9 innings. You didn't have to watch until the 9th. I did anyway, but I didn't have to. You simmed to the end. It's 2021 Yankees vibes at this point. And look, I understand injuries are a problem. Every team deals with injuries, though. What happened on Friday? Michael Brantley was lost for the season for the Astros. They have 75 wins. They're fine. Michael Brantley's a very important player for, that team to kind of get through and chug along. He's been batting above 300 with them for the past 3 years. That's a very crucial, 1 through 4 guy. You could pretty much put him wherever in the lineup. Astros are fine.
Yeah, he's there.
Just got Lance McCullers back. Guy who's been out for over a year. They're getting stronger. They're figuring it out. Yankees can't figure it out. Yankees have one piece of the puzzle get removed, and everything comes crashing down. And you got to point to the guys who are underperforming. Andrew Benintendi, simply not good enough, but we already knew that. Josh Donaldson, awful. Gleyber Torres, awful. And can you really blame anybody else? Anthony Rizzo dealing with a back injury. Kyle Higashioka, not really that good. Jose Trevino overachieved this year and has done more than he ever needed to. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, exactly who he is and who we've always known to be, but fans still get angry about that. And Miguel Andujar is here, and he's not very good. His trademark hits are bloops over the shortstop's head. You're looking at roster construction here, depth construction, an unwillingness to call up top prospects when the opportunity presents itself, and then just everybody folding when a guy like Giancarlo Stanton gets removed from the equation. And guess what, guys? DJ LeMahieu's coming next. Just found out he got a cortisone shot in his foot right at the All-Star break. Now his foot's acting up again. And it's been bothering him for 4 to 5 days over that span. I think he's 6 for his last 38 with 1 RBI. So clearly something's going on there, and this could drag on a lot longer than we needed to. So with the way this roster is built, with the way other players, I guess, are folding when they have to step up in the spotlight, it's really not looking good for the rest of the stretch, and I have zero confidence.
No, it's crazy they won the Saturday game. Because again, after the Clay Holmes blown save, the most inevitable, look, sometimes these are going to happen. And blown saves happen. You just want to maximize the space between them so that you don't feel like they ripped your soul out. And when Clay Holmes blew that save on Friday night, that was 7 of 8 since July 9th. So again, and this stat is a little bit, the Yankees had 2 saves during that stretch. One was Clay Holmes in Baltimore. One was Clark Schmidt going 3 innings to win an 8-2 game against the Royals. Those are not the same. So congrats to Clark Schmidt on not blowing a 8-2 lead over the course of 3 innings. But in terms of late and close save opportunities, it was Holmes bailing out Michael King, and it was Efros on Saturday. Between those, there were no saves executed. Holmes blew several saves, and we now reach the point where Aroldis Chapman is the guy who you want to see come in. Oh, great. That's so exciting. Now we're moving on to a closer by committee, apparently, but not by choice, because they'd use Clay Holmes as closer if they could, but what did he pitch in a 9-3 game in the Seattle opener and gave up a run there. He blew a save in St. Louis. He blew a save at Boston, obviously on July 9th, at Boston again on Friday. He blew a save in against the Royals at home. It's a lot of blown saves for Clay Holmes lately.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of great stuff. And Friday, they felt completely in control of that game, even though it was just 2-1, even though I believe they put runners on against Nathan Eovaldi in 6 innings and scored twice, and one was a solo Aaron Judge home run, even though they probably should have been up 4 or 5-1. They were not. They were up 2-1, but it felt as in control as it could. The heart of the Red Sox order was coming up in the 9th, and just a ground out by Devers. Wow, 1 out, nobody on. Walk, single. JD Martinez hitting like Gleyber Torres in the second half of the season, and yet somehow he's still able to get that done. And you watch Saturday, it probably evens out, right? Yankees probably watched the Red Sox play the same game that they had on Friday night that day. They leave a lot of guys on base. Aroldis Chapman picks off Bogarts for the 3rd out of an inning and gets out of a jam. Scott Efros, 1st and 2nd in the 9th. Even after they pull ahead in the 9th, 1st and 2nd, 1 out for Devers and Bogarts. Dribbler to the catcher, pop up to Anthony Rizzo running in for first base. That's very Yankees-ish lately. That's very familiar. So you'd say those first 2 games probably netted out where they should have. Yankees should have won Friday. Red Sox should have won Saturday. But earlier in the season, Yankees were winning both of those. That's why they have the lead that they do, because things weren't netting out. They were just winning baseball games. They were finding new ways to win. Now they're finding new ways to be normal and to basically like let the universe have, what it had already. And they're splitting 2 gamers where they should probably be, just taking them both instead of blowing a save. Scott Efros does a great job of getting out of Dodge on Saturday. But then, of course, the Isaiah Kiner-Falefa game in a week where he's been getting threats and people are DMing his dad, horrible stuff. He comes out on top. The Yankees win a game they probably didn't deserve, thanks in part to the most unlikely hero of all time. And it turned the season around until the next game started. And it just turned the season around in a circle back to where it began, which was a place that sucked. It turned the season 360 degrees around. The bullpen is now going to go to a closer by committee. Sometimes it's going to be Chapman. Sometimes it's going to be Efros. Sometimes it's going to be Wandy Peralta, even though we know that doesn't work. Sometimes it might even be Clay Holmes, who should probably get a phantom IL stint because his release point's dropping and he's been terrible lately. Sometimes it might be Ron Marinaccio, who's not even on the roster. Sometimes it might be Clark Schmidt, who's not even on the roster. Is that good that 2 potential closers are not on the roster? You guys are going to have to decide. Sometimes it might be Lou Trevino, but are they going closer by committee by choice? No, they would be using Holmes if they could. And interestingly enough, they've kind of been going closer by committee all year long. Here are the Yankees who've gotten saves this season. Holmes, Chapman, Clark Schmidt, Efros, Chad Green, Michael King, Wandy Peralta, Lucas Licky, Manny Banuelos, and Ryan Weber. Some of those are 3-inning saves. They love to do that this year. Licky had one at Fenway Park right before things fell off a cliff. Ryan Weber, I don't remember. I think that was also against the Red Sox. I think that was in like the 14-3 game at Yankee Stadium before the break. Again, when things were still relatively okay. But the Yankees have been using multiple closers all year because they don't have one. And they had one in Clay Holmes for less time than you really think they did. It was only like a month and a half. And then the release point started going, and then he fell off the mountaintop. We miss Clay Holmes, the closer, but they've barely had Clay Holmes, the closer, and they certainly don't right now. So who's at the top of my trust tree? It's like Chapman and Efros and Marinaccio, who's not on the roster. If Chapman's unavailable for a game, which he was on Sunday night, who's going to take over that role? Nobody. That's why you're left with Albert Abreu in Seattle. There's no second line of defense. Loaizaga, it's completely untrustworthy. If your preferred closer isn't available, there is no one on the Yankees who can pick up the slack. except for there is, and again, he's in the minor leagues right now. And there's another guy who's also in the minor leagues right now. Chad Green got the brunt of some angry fans last year because his high leverage outings weren't what they should be. It would really help them right now.
Yeah. And you look at the numbers, everything's starting to slowly even out. The Yankees have 30 comeback wins this year. That's fucking great. But guess what? They've blown 18 leads. They're 12-8. They have 12 walk-off wins, and they have 8 walk-off losses. So the magic is over. They got themselves a great cushion in the beginning of the year going on that run that they did. And now the problems that we had all worried about, kept in the back of our minds because we knew they still existed, are now, rearing their ugly heads. And now this play, 8-15 since the All-Star break, have lost a grasp on the American League. The Astros are, I think, 3 games up now. Good luck. Good luck getting that lead back. I don't think you're getting it back. Enjoy going to Houston because that's probably what's going to happen. And then you look, what else do we have to talk about the bullpen? There's nothing else to talk about the bullpen. There wasn't enough fortification at the trade deadline. I don't think I need to fucking tell you that again on this podcast. If we're relying on Zach Britton to contribute innings come September, whatever drugs you're on seem to be pretty good, if that's actually what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Brian Cashman is peddling those drugs if he thinks that this is actually going to be a realistic scenario where Zach Britton, who hasn't pitched in over a year, is going to help the Yankees bullpen when he hasn't helped the Yankees bullpen in like almost 2 years. So the bullpen is its own argument. It's already been spoken about enough. Clark Schmidt and Ron Marinaccio not here, not enough trade deadline acquisitions made, not addressing the injuries properly, not utilizing the people correctly that you had. And here we go. It's just going to persist. Now you look at injuries that are continuing to be an issue. We just talked about DJ. Didn't know he was dealing with a foot issue a month ago. Now here it is. It's back. That's the Yankees' second best player at the moment. Could argue he's the second most important player on the team this year because he's played more than Stanton and because he's gotten the offense off to the starts that they have gotten off to, because he's frequently been the leadoff hitter setting the tone at the top of the lineup, which is when the Yankees were their best in 2019 and 2020. So we don't know. He's getting imaging today in New York City. Says he hopes to be in the lineup for the Rays game. I don't know why he would be.
He won't be.
I really don't know why he would be the day of getting imaging. So don't expect to see him tonight. Then you have Giancarlo Stanton, who this was a weird injury update. On Friday night, we were told there was no timetable. And then on Sunday, there was a report that he could go on a minor league rehab assignment this week. So I would love to know how that's the messaging from the Yankees. You tell people no timetable 2 days before, and then 2 days later, you tell people he's ready for a rehab assignment when he was only participating in baseball activities and actually got the day off from baseball activities one day last week, because apparently that's what had to happen. This is no knock on Stanton, by the way. It's just the way the Yankees handle injuries, and it's poor. And then you have Severino, which is my favorite one, my absolute favorite one, because he goes down on July 13th with this lat strain, comes out of that start against the Reds, pitched 2 innings, gave up 4 runs, put a complete strain on the bullpen. The Yankees win that game 7-6, thank God. But then after the game, he tells reporters that he didn't feel good that day. He didn't feel something was right, but he decided to not tell anybody and pitch anyway. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, out for a full month, did not pick up a baseball until almost a month into this injury. And then at the trade deadline, subsequently gets placed on the 60-day IL, either without his knowledge or without his permission, which then creates more headlines because he reportedly told people that he was pissed off by the decision, unhappy, angered with the team. And from one of the Yankees beat writers, it was said that the Yankees tried to show him a calendar to tell him that it wouldn't make that big of a difference in terms of when he would come back. And he refused to look at the calendar because he was so mad. So now Severino is throwing a bullpen session today. He's throwing a bullpen session today for the first time since injuring himself over a month ago, and is not eligible to return for another, 4 weeks? So it kind of lines up the timeline. I think if he probably throws bullpens for maximum a week, or maybe even more than that. Bullpen simulated game rehab assignment back to the MLB roster, which you have to guess will take at the very least 2 weeks. I would probably lean closer toward 3 weeks, which then brings you that much closer to him deserving to be on the 60-day IL. So we got a whole lot of drama from the Yankees and from Luis Severino, and the timeline for his return is actually not going to be far off from what the Yankees had predicted after placing him on the 60-day IL. So those are 3 great injury updates that you have the DJ one where we were never told about a foot issue. That's apparently persisted for longer than a month now. You have Stanton, who's has no timetable, but also ready to come back now or in a week. And then you have Severino, who is throwing a bullpen session today and is probably not going to be on track to return he is on track to return on the timeline the Yankees gave him that he ended up being pissed off about. So everything's great with the Yankees, it seems.
Yeah, who wants to take bets on DJ returning to the lineup today on the day of his imaging? Yeah, I think that'll go great. I think he's going to go right to the doctor, get some imaging on the foot that hurt too much to play on Sunday night. And the doctor will say, DJ, we ran through your imaging so quickly. Your foot is incredible. Your foot is unbelievable. And he'll go, that's so weird. I feel the same pain I did yesterday. And the doctor goes, well, it's fake and you're lying to me. So you're going to play. And he goes, that's all I needed to hear. Thanks for the tough love. And then he goes into the lineup. That's not what's going to happen. What does happen is this team will listen to a player's injury concern, probably play them one day longer than they should, like Anthony Rizzo. I feel like his back issue probably could have been sussed out earlier. He was in the lineup until he pulled himself like 20 minutes before the game that Friday in St. Louis. Severino woke up bothered, but still pitched that game against the Reds, gave up back-to-back home runs to the 7, 8, 9 guys in the lineup, I believe, and then was like, you guys are right. I'm injured. I made a mistake. It turns out I'm not good enough to get the bottom of the Reds lineup out, and for that, I apologize. And then DJ, yeah, he's red hot, comes out of the All-Star break. He's like top 10 in WAR in baseball. And then all of a sudden he's like 7 for 33. And it's like, wait, why did it turn around? Oh, foot pain, of course. Thank you for telling us way after the fact. They put out the worst lineup I've ever seen from them on Sunday Night Baseball at Fenway Park. It predictably was buzzsawed in 2 hours. And thank God it was, because if that lineup had gotten them a 3-2 lead and had to hand it over to the bullpen, not Chapman, not Efros, Albert Abreu, Wandy Peralta, I think I would have eaten, old paint. So I can't be doing this. At least they were kind enough to lose Sunday night's game in as dull fashion as they possibly could have without even a glimmer of potentially obtaining a lead. They went 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position, which is always good to see. 0 for 1. They got 1 chance with a runner in scoring position, did not get a hit. And that was the game. That is not how you win baseball games. And they did not win the baseball game. The IKF game was legitimately awesome. Inspiring. You win it with a long ball from a guy who doesn't have a home run all year. Win it with small ball from the same guy. And Benintendi's ripping doubles in that game. And the Yankees are making plays to get out of the 9th. Trevino makes a great play on that dribbler, gets the lead runner at second. IKF with the scoop. What a game. Just got to win one of those other 2 games, and they didn't. Now, the DJ injury, he's not playing today. He's already been held out of 1 game, so that would be 2. We can do a retroactive 10-day IL stint. The Yankees do have a cushion in the AL East, famously. It's why they're playing as boringly as they are right now, because they do not have a sense of urgency with the players who are available. They also have a talent deficit. They're missing significant players from their lineup. Stanton, Matt Carpenter, LeMahieu, Rizzo is out for a while, etc. Everybody knows this, but also Stanton might be back already if it were a 2-game lead, or at least he probably would already be on a rehab assignment. He's not, because they have a 10-game lead. DJ probably would have been put on the shelf to get himself ready. I don't really know why. That's what I'm trying to say. The Yankees aren't showing urgency with like a Stanton because they don't think they have to. They're not showing urgency with a Luis Severino because they don't think they have to. They're saying, here, look at a calendar. And not only do we not have urgency, but read this calendar that says September and make it clear that you understand what we're saying to you. And he's saying, I hate that. And I hate you as well. But they are not urgently rushing those guys back because they have a 10-game cushion in the standings. That was 12 games at the All-Star break. They've played like dog shit for a month now after the All-Star break. They're 8-15, and their cushion in the AL East has gone down 2 games. So they don't care. Great. Why wouldn't you put DJ on the IL then and call up Oswaldo Cabrera or Oswald Peraza? Oswald Peraza, I believe it's 5 days until he loses a crucial year of service time. Same with Oswaldo Cabrera. I think it's August 20th. They could call those guys up without having to sacrifice some more precious time on the calendar. So they're going to make sure DJ LeMahieu's either healthy until August 20th or sits on that bench. Their favorite place to put injured people. Playing a roster spot short for 5 days because Anthony Rizzo's back hurts, but not enough to call him injured, but hurts for him to play. They're going to try to pull that with DJ LeMahieu again until at least August 20th. They're not going to call up Peraza or Cabrera. Cabrera is red hot. Peraza is also really hot and has been for 2 months. It'd be nice to see either one of them right now. The Braves getting a spark from Vaughn Grissom, their top shortstop prospect, who they called up for next to no reason, who just raked at Fenway Park. The Yankees will not do that, cannot do that because they have a 10-game lead and because August 20th is not today.
The complacency is insane. And just one more thing on Stanton that I forgot to mention is he has not yet run the bases. Not once.
Well,
not once has he run the bases, but apparently he could be ready to go on a minor league assignment. So he's not going to practice running the bases at all. I guess we'll just see if he's ready to do it once the rehab assignment commences. But yeah, the complacency here is what's driving people nuts. They're not, Aaron Boone's not really managing with urgency, and to take his side, I don't know how you could manage with urgency with the collection of players that you have at the moment, outside of just, more quickly removing Clay Holmes from these high leverage situations where he's clearly not been able to handle it for whatever reason. We don't know. Clay Holmes does not deserve to lose his job permanently. But just like the Chapman discussion that we've had for now, this is the 3rd year, just could maybe benefit from a role change. And, so many other teams do it. There's no reason to keep inserting a guy into a high leverage situation where there's been an issue now for a month, better part of a month, I'd say, mostly the last 2.5 weeks. So the trade deadline didn't show any urgency to me. It once again was carefully crafted trades to minimize risk, address areas of need, but not as good as you could have. And then the roster decisions in-house have been infuriating. You option Marinaccio and Clark Schmidt. You're not calling up any of the top prospects who may or may not be ready. It's the Yankees way. You look at, how about this? Anybody listening right now? I want somebody to fucking tell me the last time the Yankees called up a top prospect in the middle of a season that jolted energy into the roster. I cannot remember the last time it happening outside of maybe Clint Frazier, who then they kept jerking back between the minor leagues and MLB roster, which have essentially ended his career. But, you just mentioned Vaughn Grissom. Why, he was at AA, logged 32 games at AA before getting the call. The Yankees have this obsession with linear progression. So they need to see Oswald Peraza maybe get his OPS above 800 before they're comfortable calling him up. I don't know what it's going to take for him to get called up. They need a perfect season of him at AAA before he gets the call. Is he having the greatest season? No, he has some holes in his defensive game. Not the greatest defender of all time, but can clearly defend the position. He's batting 255 or 258 or something, not the greatest average. OPSing 770, not the greatest OPS, but guess what? He hits homers, he drives and runs, he steals bases, so he could be a little bit of an all-around threat for you, be an interesting piece on the bench to have, be an interesting motivated player on a team full of wilting players that could kind of reawaken something. There's none of that feel around this team. And Adam, you're more the baseball historian, especially with the Yankees. Please tell me the last time they called up a top prospect who wasn't exactly ready, tailor-made ready for Major League Baseball, and in the middle of a season when they were in the middle of a run or needed some help or whatever, because I look back to 2015, didn't find anything.
Yeah, well, they accidentally almost got in the playoffs in 2016 when they called up Gary and Judge and Tyler Austin, but that was after they'd already waved the white flag
Yeah.
and said, this trade deadline, we are sacrificing our present for our future. And then they called up the future and they're like, oh, fuck, Gary Sanchez is 20 home runs in 50 games. We did it wrong. Oops. Like Chad Green was in the rotation at that point. The only other, I remember they Bird in 2015 when they were on the road in Cleveland and had lost 4 straight, and that kind of worked. And he won a game in September where he walked off the Orioles, and he beat the Twins with 2 homers with Evaldi on the mound, and it almost kind of sort of gave you hope for 2016. Then they lose the wild card game. They end 2015, by the way. I've been thinking about the 2015 Yankees a lot because what the 2022 Yankees are doing feels a lot like what the 2015 Yankees did. I'm pulling up the schedule and results just to make sure I get it right. Because the 2022 Yankees basically entered a second half where it was unless they lose every day, they're going to be okay. Unless they blow every save, they'll be fine. And then they go on the road. They go 2-7 on this road trip after losing a series to the Mariners. So they're 3-9 during that. It's 3-9 in August now, which is terrible. And I guess isn't 0-12, but it's really bad. And they started 1-0 in August. So 2-9 since, dreadful, abysmal against good teams. And the Red Sox, who will always play
deadline, I think is more important to point out.
8-15, right? Since the trade.
That's the second half.
No. Sorry, 8-15 in the second half. 2-9 since the trade deadline officially went down. They won the game the day of the Montas trade and the Efros trade, but then after the Montgomery thing, they lose basically every game after that. 2015, very similar. They're definitely playing above their head. They're 67-54 when Bird comes up and goes and plays that game in Cleveland. They win that one 6-2. Severino on the mound. Shout out to Greg Bird. Helping steady the team down the stretch. Then they get all the way to 86-69. Cool. They're 4 games up. 4 games back. They're not going to win the East, but they're probably going to secure a wild card spot after kind of a wobbly second half, making you a little bit more invested. And basically, they're going to have home field advantage in that game unless they lose every single game for the rest of the season. Boston comes in for 4. They go to Baltimore for 3. Lose the first to Boston, second to Boston, third to Boston in 11 innings. Beat Boston in the 4th one. That's what clinched their spot in the wild card game. Okay, cool. Great. Then they're going to secure home field advantage if they could just win 1 game. They go at Baltimore for 3 games. Rain out turns into a doubleheader. Loss. And they only get home field advantage there because Houston also lost the last game of the season. Same deal. Very familiar, right? They're not in trouble unless they lose every game. Oh, wait. They went 1-6 in a final 7 games. We're going 3-4 or 2-5 would have been good enough. That's what this current team is doing. Honestly, playing 500 ball during this stretch against important opponents. Everybody said they had their worst month in July. But at least they were 500. That's their worst month. That's not so bad. Well, no, they're 3-9 this month. They're way below 500. Truly, all they have to do, like I said in the intro, is take 2 out of 3 from the Rays, split with the Jays, split with the Mets. That is fine. Nobody cares. That is more than enough work, especially with this much of a lead. You just have to erase days off the schedule. But why you can't pencil them in for a series win against the Rays? You can't pencil them in for a series split against the Jays, even though the Rays offense doesn't totally exist anymore. And even though the Jays rotation has been really underperforming and the big names on the Jays offense haven't been great either, Vlad and Bichette and Teoscar Hernandez is their best hitter. But who do you have more faith in right now? Hernandez, Bichette, and Guerrero getting hot for a 4-game series, or Judge getting carried by Rizzo and Donaldson? Because I know the answer there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the fucking answer too. I know the answer. It's the frustrating part about all of this is the more surprise. I don't even know how to articulate this. It's the more I'm so surprised that the Yankees have rode that historic first half into not learning a single thing. The last few years, they've been complacent. They've been bad at handling injuries. They haven't really taken any risks, whether it was the trade deadline or the offseason. And I'm not counting the Garrett Cole signing as anything, because that was something that simply needed to happen. And they parlay this tremendous first half with, I literally don't even know what it's been. It's just been a ton of inaction, a ton of poor oversight. And it just goes to show that the roster simply is not enough at this juncture to actually win, or forget about win. Maybe you win the ALDS, but you're not going deep in October with this roster as it stands. I don't know how people would think that, or what the feel like. Tell me your feelings. Tell me why you feel this team is still, quote, different. Why this team slaps different. I literally don't know. Like, they've lost a lot of key guys. I understand that. Chad Green, huge loss. But guess what? They absorbed that loss because they had Michael King and they had Clark Schmidt. Michael King went down. They optioned Clark Schmidt. They don't really, I like Scott Efros. I like Lou Trevino. Are those guys filling voids that even those guys, maybe this is a hot take, those guys aren't even filling voids that Chad Green had when he was, as integral of a bullpen piece that he was. Yet we'll see. I don't know if either of them are capable of doing that over the long term, but we have been on Chad's Green. We've been on Chad Green's case. We've been on Chad's case before because of his penchant for giving up a home run, or Aaron Boone inserting him to the 1,000th big spot over the past 2 months or whatever it was, and he's exhausted. But I don't know what other aspect of this roster tells you that this is going to be any different. Even the rotation, like Garrett Cole, still doesn't give me any confidence in, a winner go home playoff game. Nestor Cortez is probably the guy I have the most confidence in, and I don't know what to expect from him in October. Jamison Tyone, you could get a very good quality start out of him one day, or you could get one of the most stressful and worst starts you've seen from him the next day. Luis Severino, is that a guy that's going to stay healthy? He hasn't proven that in literally 4 years. Domingo Germán, don't really care if he's pitching well, should have been off the roster 2 years ago. And then you want to talk about the depth in the minor leagues outside of Marinaccio and Schmidt. They got rid of mostly everybody else who might have been, MLB ready from a pitching standpoint. So, yeah. And then the guys that are ready ostensibly from a hitting standpoint, positional player wise, depth player wise, are not being called up. Frankie Montas, absolutely solid. Not anything special, not anything that's going to get this team over the hump. And then you look at the lineup, like Marwin Gonzalez has done a nice job, but what confidence do you have there? Josh Donaldson playing great defense, can't hit the ball. Gleyber Torres maximized his value right before the trade deadline. They probably should have traded him. Then more people get injured. Then he sees more pitches. Then he gets worse because he's just not that great, contrary to popular belief, I guess. Aaron Hicks, bad. Like I said, sandwiched a very good 35 games in between the shit sandwich that has been created over the last, 4 months for him. Just not enough. Matt Carpenter going down. Don't even count Matt Carpenter as a loss, Yankees fans, because that was a luxury. Matt Carpenter was never supposed to be part of this team. Matt Carpenter coming here was absolute luck. I loved it. I still love Matt Carpenter. I want him back on this team, but you can't say, oh man, we lost Matt Carpenter too. Matt Carpenter was never supposed to be here. Matt Carpenter was here by accident because the Rangers are idiots. You can't count people coming, waltzing onto this roster because of another team being stupid. You need to talk about the actual roster construction that's been in the Yankees' control and that the Yankees have taken a part in. Andrew Benintendi, once again, solid acquisition, not moving the needle. Harrison Bader, we don't know if we're going to see him. Miguel Andujar has requested a trade 2 times, but he's still here not doing anything. So, you look at your most important players, and it ends up coming down to DJ LeMahieu, Judge, Stanton, and Rizzo. And is that enough? It might be, but I think you need more depth than that. I think a lot of teams have 4 core players who are very good, and then it's the ancillary pieces that get the job done, or they have a very strong starting rotation, or they have an identity. To me, this Yankees team doesn't have an identity outside of just Aaron Judge being really good. At least, you want to talk about today on August 15th, it seemed like previously there was an identity with the way the lineup was performing as a whole at times in stretches, with the way the rotation wasn't giving up any runs. But then the regressions happened. Then maybe certain guys couldn't handle the regressions and they've slipped further into a regression. Then injuries happen. And then you see the depth behind the injuries not really being enough or as much as you need. And then that's on the front office to repair what's gone wrong. So the front office has played a large role in not really helping solidify the identity of this team. And, I'll say it again. And that's why I feel like Aaron Judge leaving is becoming a reality with each passing day. You want to go 2-9 since the trade deadline, after the trade deadline was supposed to reinvigorate the team and to re-inspire everybody and to inject some sort of life. The trade deadline did not do that. It was getting to a point where it looked like it might have been doing that, but then it didn't do it. And then there's been ample opportunity to call up top prospects, whoever they were. I mean, is it the worst thing if Anthony Volpe comes up right now? I don't know. Am I stupid for even suggesting that? Is that a crazy thing? Is that so crazy to the front office that they can't even fathom that idea? Would I support that? I really don't know. But do you try? Would you rather see what other guys can do at this juncture, or do you want to just keep rolling out the same bad lineup that has been bad for now a month? I don't know what your choice. Are the Yankees going to go after Trey Turner in the offseason and maybe look to trade Anthony Volpe and somebody else for something? I literally don't know. Maybe that's their new philosophy, and that's why they didn't do anything momentous at the trade deadline. And they think the calculus has been completely changed because of all the injuries they suffered. They didn't think it was enough to overcome, and they don't know if Judge is going to stay. So now they have to look elsewhere and figure something out. I literally don't know. But to be here stuck in neutral, to not make moves momentous enough to change things, and then to not make in-house decisions enough to potentially change things or shake things up, is just what this team has been since 2018, and it's infuriating.
And Marwin Gonzalez has like 7 at-bats since the All-Star break, and that's the roster spot we can't mess with. And Some people are saying, why would you call someone like Cabrera or Peraza up to take that Marwin spot? Because that Marwin spot never plays. So the reps at AAA are more valuable to them. I don't know. Bench Josh Donaldson. Make sure that Marwin spot plays when you put a better player in there. I don't want Marwin Gonzalez in the lineup every day, but I kind of want Osvaldo Cabrera in the lineup every day, and I kind of want Peraza in the lineup every day. So how about we use that roster spot? Instead of saying, well, the Yankees can't possibly call somebody up there, and even if they could, it wouldn't be valuable because it's a dead roster spot. Dead roster spots. Andrew Bank on Twitter hit us with a question, a valuable one. Why is Aaron Judge still batting second? Great question. Does he feel comfortable there? Do we have any idea? You'd think they were behaving in Judge's best interest, but he has 46 homers this year, and 29 of them are solo shots. Is that in the team's best interest? Can we figure out a way to fix that? That's an inordinate amount of solo home runs. The leadoff men are not getting a base ahead of Aaron Judge. Isn't the guy with chasing 61 homers supposed to drive in more runs? I think he was at 44 and 100 over the weekend. And it was kind of like, oh, wow, 100 RBI. But it's like, shouldn't that be 120? What happened to 160 RBI in a season? Like, people used to do that. I miss that. Perhaps those would be more runs that the Yankees could have scored. Lost. Let's briefly talk about Jeter and A-Rod hanging out together on Sunday Night Baseball's K-Rod cast. His version of this story was to talk about how A-Rod and was touching Jeter too much, like inappropriately. I think that's a weird way to... No! I did not mean to do that. It's trying to delete. Please hide that mystery. EEI put out a story about how A-Rod was like touching Jeter too much. That's not the story. There was a lot more interesting stuff there, and it was mostly Alex Rodriguez related. He went after Brian Cashman. He would have fit in well on this podcast. Not only taking him to task for the deadline moves and saying, I understand how you could possibly get rid of, Luis Castillo, not get Luis Castillo and get rid of Jordan Montgomery at the same time. What's that about? Agreed. What's that about? You're not going to trade Volpe, but you're also not going to use Volpe. You're not going to trade Peraza, but you're also not going to use Peraza. So what is it? Are they just guys that hang out at AAA? Or do you want to win a World Series? Because Luis Castillo looks pretty good. We faced him 3 times in a month. I digress. A-Rod also took him to task for using Gleyber Torres at shortstop, making the Joey Gallo trade that A-Rod, to his credit, hated last year and hated this year and hates now. And he also made the all-important point that I think a lot of people, not extending Aaron Judge too, letting him flounder hit on the open market. He probably cost himself $60 million, not offering him $240 million before the season. Would he have taken it? I don't know. But he's going to touch 300 now. And then the most important point he made was that the Yankees have to realize who they are. Since 2004, the Red Sox have 4 World Series. The Yankees have 1. Red Sox have been in 4 World Series. The Yankees have been in 1. I don't know why we're still acting like this is the untouchable team. This is the franchise that has it all figured out. Whether it's the Red Sox or the Dodgers or the San Francisco Giants or the Royals, a lot of teams with different identities and different roster building philosophies. The Nationals have had more success than the Yankees since not just 2009, but since 2000. The Cardinals way tripped into the World Series. They won in 2006 and 2011 and were in the series in 2013. All the other premier franchises have gone to the finish line more often than the Yankees, have crossed the finish line more often than the Yankees. So why do the Yankees still have to act like they have the superiority complex? Because they're never the ones at the end of the line.
They're not. And that's why I think that's the biggest thing. Like a lot of people hate Brian Cashman, at least on Yankees Twitter. I don't know. It could just be a bunch of burner accounts.
Some love. Yeah. Some love, some hate.
Yeah. I mean, that's where the identity thing comes in for me. It's Brian Cashman, because why? Brian Cashman inherited a team in 1998 that was already built. It was already constructed. There was nothing else to do outside of, y'all ain't even doing enough hating for me to hate on y'all right now. Yeah, no, because we hate ourselves. Drunk's coming in to talk to us. I get it. I mean, we're more depressed than we are hating. How much more mad can we be?
Again, they just have to be 500 and they're not. Like we're not mad. This is they lose constantly. They lose every day. I'm not mad about it. It's what they do.
It's Brian Cashman for me. And I know that he's made a lot of good trades. He does the quote, the Cashman move in silence. He's gotten Clay Holmes. That's great. But like he inherited a roster in 98. It was already tailor-made. The homegrown guys were already there. The nucleus was there. The energy and the identity was there. And that's where those 3 World Series wins came from. They did not come from Brian Cashman. Obviously, the David Justice trade was huge, and that helped the team. But you can't convince me that Brian Cashman has been the moving force that's kept the Yankees. He's kept the Yankees in contention. That's Brian Cashman's calling card. Since he's taken over, they've never had a losing season. They've missed the playoffs a handful of times. They've largely always been there, but they're not getting beyond where they need to go. And to me, that comes down to identity, because what's your identity? Like, think about all the not the great franchises. Think about all the other franchises that just don't get the job done and choke. There's plenty of them, and their identity is choking. The Dodgers' identity up until 2020 was really good, but you actually choke and you kind of suck. And that was it. And then a shortened season ended up potentially turning that around for them. But is any rival fan that hates the Dodgers, are you going to be shocked if they get eliminated in the NLCS this year? I don't think you are, because I think that's been who the Dodgers are mostly. And to be honest, I don't know how the Yankees are any different outside of a 2009 World Series win that was orchestrated by Brian Cashman, but was also kickstarted by George Steinbrenner saying, fuck it, spend $500 million. Like, we got to do this. So that, like, to me, that's real. Like, that's all it's been. It's been Brian Cashman here not doing enough and only doing enough when he's forced to do enough. Because you look at trade deadlines over the last 10 years, you look at off seasons over the last 10 years, nothing's been enough. Even how excited were you the off season that they signed McCann, Ellsbury, and Beltran? That wasn't exciting. That was just like, well, we got to do something this year. So let's who's there? Who's out there? Let's spend the money. Like, let's just get people. Who's there? That was what that's how that came off to me. I don't know how that came off to other Yankees fans. But that was my feeling around it. And that's, there's never been that aggression There hasn't been that that will to kind of go over the edge, and I think it stems from having no identity. And I don't know what the front office is. What now? The front office has gradually gone toward being analytics heavy. Like that's the identity. The identity is finding diamonds in the rough. You want to just keep finding diamonds in the rough everywhere instead of just getting the thing that's good and not having to bank on turning something around that might never turn around. And I get the necessity for having to do that. You can't just acquire all the stars. We laugh at Yankees fans. I even laugh at myself sometimes because you're just like, oh, why don't we have a better center fielder? Why don't we have a better shortstop? Because you can't have all-stars at every position. It just doesn't work like that. You're not the AL all-star team. But at the same time, you see the same problems persist and you're like, okay, wait a second. I might sound like a baby complaining every day, but also this has been going on for like years. Can't we fix something? And nothing ever seems to get as fixed as it needs to be. Once again, anybody out there, tell me the Yankees' identity over the last 3 years that is not Aaron Judge is really good. Because that's it. It's Aaron Judge is really good, and this team may or may not hit a bunch of home runs. And then there's nothing else in between. That's it for me.
That's it for me. I was excited when we got Brian McCann. I thought that was a nice
kind of
move.
pumped for that, but it was like, okay, catcher. Is that gonna be it? I don't know.
I thought it'd be a difference maker. It was fucking not. It was very boring. That was a strange era of Yankees baseball. And we never really got Masahiro Tanaka either. People love Tanaka. I love Tanaka. He was a different guy before, his partial UCL tear.
Yeah.
And he was only pitching at 95, 96, 97 miles an hour for like 3.5 months. And then he was never quite the same again. I'm looking out the window right now at a hornet bearing his stinger at me, pointing it in the window, crawling up the side. I think that's a signal that this podcast is over. That is it for this edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm literally being held at ass point by a hornet right now. Oh, just flew away. All right, that was very cool. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We'll be more than happy to answer. It also came out today that Game 7 of the World Series is on my wedding. So the Yankees will either not be playing in the World Series or will absolutely recover in the months of August and September and make a World Series run. And that will come down to one ultimate game, Game 7, a game that will be talked about for generations and will be not watched by me or my wedding guests. You can give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you feel bad about that. We'll also be live on YouTube, 2:00 Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays. Or if the Yankees do anything interesting that makes us go live, we'll happily go live. Our commenters congratulating me on getting married. Yeah, man, I figured it out. Thomas is already married. This is going to be a 2-married podcast. His wedding, your wedding was on a Yankees comeback win over the A's last year.
Yeah, it was.
Securing the save. A rare bullpen success in the horrible 2021 season. And I will be getting married on Game 7 of, as my uncle said on Twitter, Mets Astros. So that'll be cool. Join us for our streams. We'll go live again if anything else interesting happens. Thomas Carinante, you can find me at Adam Weiner. The handle's right there. Thomas Carinante, where can the people find you?
At Tummy's_takes, folks. You can also talk to us on the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. You can also head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Written content. Reading is good. Reading's fun. You should just keep doing it. We are getting a lot of readers because people are mad at the Yankees right now. And no better time to talk to us in the comment section or on Twitter. Tell us what you're most mad about this team or anything else baseball wise. And we'll talk about it. Keep the discourse going. It's not fun to be a Yankee fan right now. Crucial stretch of a couple weeks of baseball, which began on Friday. Rays, Jays, Mets next. I don't really know what else to say. The pitching matchups seem to align in this Rays series. It could be good, but are you really going to be surprised when it goes bad? You're not. So we're here to offer the words of encouragement as best we can for the Yankees, but they've given us nothing else to say other than just please win. Please just get back on track. And we'll be waiting for that day along with you guys. And the next time we'll talk to you is on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see you there.
2 wins in a row. It'd be stunning. They have not done it since the deadline. I don't believe they've done it since the break. Seriously. They beat the Orioles in a 3-game set. Non-consecutive win-loss win. That was dumb. They beat the Royals 3 times in a row, but
Yeah.
they have not beaten anybody consecutively since the trade deadline was, pushed off by the genius Brian Cashman, the Cash God. Maybe we can win these first 2 against Tampa. It'd be great. We'll see you on Thursday.